As a kid in the 80s, I was at ground zero for the boom of video games. I was there for the Commodore, ColecoVision, Atari, and NES, and I was hooked from the beginning, but I distinctly remember hearing grown-ups say that playing video games would rot your brain and were just a waste of time. Well, fast forward a few decades, I'm now pushing 50, and I am still a gamer. And while there's certainly something to be said about balancing game time with adult responsibilities, I have come to realize that a lifetime of leveling characters, looting corpses, and stomping sentient fungus has led to some very real, tangible skills that have benefited me as a composer. So whether it's World of Warcraft, Minecraft, Fortnite, Call of Duty, or Super Mario, we're going to unpack 5 ways in which gaming can help your career in production music on this week's episode of the 52 Cues podcast. What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. Plus, we feature a cue written by a member of the 52 Cues community, and this week we're going to be taking a listen to a dark pulsing tension cue written by Jerome Detotto, so you definitely want to stick around for that. My name is Dave Croft, and I write and teach production music for a living with placements from the NFL to the Oprah Winfrey Network. So whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go, I just want to thank you for joining me today. This episode is made possible by today's sponsor, you, the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Cues who help keep the podcast, the channel, and everything going. We are 100% community supported, so you're not going to hear any sponsored segments for supplements or earbuds. But if you want to learn more about how you can help support 52 Cues and also unlock community perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and much more, then be sure to click on the links in the description or stick around because we're going to be talking more about that a little bit later in today's episode. And before we get started, I do want to mention that the summer 2023 Mastermind is now open for registration. Just head over to 52cues.com/mastermind. It's a 12-week program where we meet to discuss industry topics. We do weekly feedback. We critique each other's works. And if you're really ready to kind of boost your career and get really serious about it, then head over to 52cues.com/mastermind and register today. Seats are limited. It is intentionally kept to a small group, and we are offering it in July, and the next session will open up in January. We're not going to be going every quarter. We're only offering it at the beginning of the year and halfway through the year. And so yeah, if that's something that you're interested in and you've been wondering whether or not you're really ready to take the next step, then I would encourage you to join us at 52cues.com/mastermind. So I want to talk about how being a gamer has really improved my life as a production music composer. And what got me thinking about this was switching mouses from the trackball that I used to have, that I've talked about. And I've talked about, the trackball, the Kensington expert trackball, and I've used it before, and I've loved trackballs. And when it went down recently, I had to switch out into another mouse. And one of the mice that I use frequently in my gaming time is an MMO mouse, specifically the Logitech G600 mouse. It has buttons on the side, and as I got it back into my system, I really realized how powerful this combination could be. And I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. But it got me thinking about all of these skills that a lifetime of being a gamer has benefited me in my professional life. So we're going to be talking 5 points in how being a gamer has benefited me. When this isn't just a See, Dave said it's okay to play video games and like for your parents or your significant others or your spouse or partner or whatever. But I'm just saying that there are some really very real skills, and they are ranging from kind of tangible to the more conceptual, starting with keyboard skills and mouse skills, and then navigating user interfaces and adaptability to new technologies, problem solving and exploration, and then finally, understanding how music and sound design are integrated into games. So the first thing I want to talk about is how gaming has really affected my keyboard skills. Specifically, the way that I put my hands on the keyboard. Now, as a gamer and playing like first-person shooter games or MMO games, I have what I call, and what I think is called, the WASD claw, right? It is where your hand naturally sits on top of the keyboard to where you have this kind of hand shape that is over the WASD with your thumb on the space bar. And the reason this is a thing for gaming is because if you're playing first-person games or any games where you're kind of controlling a character with a computer keyboard, those are your move buttons, where I can move forward, I can strafe left, strafe right, space is usually jump, and then you can use your pinky as modifier, so you can easily get to shift, control, option, or alt, or whatever. But this basic hand shape stays permanently affixed on the left side of my keyboard. And my right hand usually is on my mouse. That is the first-person shooter, the MMO hand position. And the reason this has translated so well for me is it's all about minimizing movement and maximizing keybinds and knowing where keys are and how quick you can get to them and to where your hand doesn't have to move as much. And this is where the MMO mouse, the Logitech G600 or like the Razer Naga is another brand of this, with the side buttons. And there are 12 on the side of this mouse, which essentially are a numpad that you would see on an extended keyboard. It's essentially a numpad. And you can map those to F keys, you can map those to number keys, you can map those to custom keybinds. And for me, being able to do things like moving the transport bar forward and backwards, being able to delete, being able to cut, being able to open windows. For example, in Logic, I have a keybind that allows me to open my library. I can open my notepad. I can open my bottom windows, my top windows. I can save. I can trim things out. I can trim, ripple, delete, all these kind of things. And I've carried it forward into other apps. So getting into nonlinear video editing like Premiere, mapping those keybinds and being able to keep my arm position with my left hand essentially hovering around the left side of the keyboard and my right hand staying on the mouse to minimize any cross movement and maximizing efficiency. And here's why this is so important. That efficiency allows me to stay in the creative flow state. It's like the difference of having to look at your hands on an instrument if you're playing guitar and having to look at the fretboard versus knowing where those notes are on the fretboard without having to look at it. Because if you're having to look at your hands, or if you're playing scales like on a saxophone and you're having to read a fingering chart, or you're having to really move and think about where every note is, then you're not really necessarily in your creative flow state. But if you can minimize those things, if you know all the notes and you're not thinking, and you're just feeling it because you just have that muscle memory down, if you will, then you're able to think more deeply, like on a different dimension. I don't know if this is too weird or pseudo-spiritual or whatever, but for me, having my left hand in this claw shape around this cluster of keybinds, and then my right hand on my mouse with another cluster of keybinds, I'm able to move forward, edit, insert, cut, delete, add notes, shift things around without my hands moving off of the tools I'm using. As soon as I have to lift a hand and move it over, then things could slow down. I'm not saying it cripples the creative flow, but it impedes it, at least for me. So having tools and keybinds in place that are directly related to my experience as a gamer has absolutely translated and transformed my composition career. Not to mention, beyond all of that, just as a gamer, you learn about precision placement, right? And so if I'm dealing with MIDI notes, or if I'm dealing with modulation parameters, to be able to precisely click on the screen and drag things around and move things around, there's just a general proficiency of using the input devices that being a gamer affords. A proficiency. Now, I'm talking a lot about PC gaming here, which would be, you're either on a laptop or something like that. But there's also, some skills from controller games, right, that I think carry over. The hand-eye coordination that gets talked about a bit. But using input devices, getting proficiency or gaining proficiency on those input devices is directly related to being able to manipulate a DAW, being able to enter MIDI notes, edit MIDI notes, edit audio, move around the interface, the keybinds. It's all about quick use of the tools, like learning scales on a saxophone. So that's the first benefit, the enhancement of keyboard and mouse skills to improve my input into the DAW and editing, those kind of things. Speed, accuracy, all of those kind of things. Okay, next up, number 2, being able to navigate user interfaces. This is somewhat related to what we were talking about, but gaming can increase your familiarity with various user interfaces and operating systems. You open up a game and there's options, there's settings, and every game tends to be a little bit different. And so if you want to go in and change something, change a setting, change a frame rate, you want to change your character and all of those types of adjustments that we need to make. If you play something like an RPG or an MMO, then you're always leveling up gear. You're getting new loot. You're changing character profiles. You're updating the look of your character. I need that new weapon. Or if you're doing a sports game and you're managing stats. So there's all these interfaces coming at you, and each game is different, and each game has an interface and a subset of an interface, and that's a lot of information coming at you. And gamers have developed the ability to navigate those user interfaces. And here is why this matters to us computer composers, because every plugin is different. You open up Omnisphere and knowing where options are and navigating the interface, or you open up Contact and flip open the back, and suddenly you're met with like a sea of options. And I feel that my experience as a gamer has absolutely lessened my trepidation when it comes to all of these different interfaces, because there's a familiarity. There's a familiarity of learning new games, learning new processes from different developers that for me has absolutely carried over to my world as a composer, especially in a DAW. Because some of these interfaces can be really complex. You go play something like The Sims, or play something like Railroad Tycoon, or any of those world building games, and it's like layers and layers and layers of menus. You play like League of Legends, you play Overwatch, where you have characters and you're picking up things. You play Fortnite and you're realizing how this new tool benefits and changes your character, and just new interfaces, interactions coming at you all the time. And so when a new plugin comes out, you're like, oh, I recognize a little bit of this, but here's how it's different. And I think it gives you an ability to work with those new interfaces, navigating these complex things that could happen, these complex systems that DAWs could have. And so when you switch DAWs and you open up Ableton versus Logic versus Cubase, being a gamer, I feel, has allowed me to adapt to those things, which leads me to my third point, which is adapting to new technologies. The gaming world is constantly evolving. There are new technologies that come out. There are new innovations, and gamers always have to adapt. There are new game mechanics. There's an increase in throughput and computing power, which allows games to implement new systems, new play styles, new combinations, new input devices. And as a gamer, you become able to adapt to all of those changing gameplay. I mean, just look at the Atari 2600 was a joystick and a button. And I play World of Warcraft, and I have, 10 or 20 different keybinds that I can each augment with a shift key, a modifier key, shift, control, alt or command or option or whatever, which gives me a whole other set of keybinds. And that's because the technology has increased. The technology allows me to do that. And gamers are used to that. New input devices, adapting landscape of technology. And this carries over into the technical aspect of being a composer as plugins evolve, as software gets increasingly more sophisticated, sample libraries get increasingly more sophisticated because computing power allows them to do so. And being a gamer has conditioned me to adapt to those changes, the continuous developments in software and production technologies. Yep. New computing power means that now you can have, deeply sampled instruments. You check out Reason's new modeling synthesizer called Object, I think it is. It's fascinating and represents a whole new kind of way of thinking about synthesis. It's really fascinating. Would that have been possible 10 years ago? Probably not. Because the computing power just wouldn't have been able to handle it. But modern computers and advancements in technologies has made a new synth come out that now we as composers need to adapt to. And I believe that being a gamer has prepared me for that adaptability. Technology in gaming is constantly evolving. Technology in the music production space is constantly evolving, always finding new things. Serato sample, I did a video on that, changed my sampling game. Would that have been possible? Well, it didn't even exist 10 years ago. And so I think being a gamer has conditioned me to adapt to those new technologies. And then number 4, how being a gamer promotes and encourages problem solving. Whether you're playing a puzzle game or not, if you're playing, Call of Duty, your problem is people are shooting at you. How do you solve that problem? If you're playing Tetris, the problem is I have descending shapes that need to find homes so that I can continue going. Problem solving, and composing is all about problem solving. It's all about asking a question and finding an answer. And games cultivate this problem solving mentality, as well as a sense of exploration. Because being a musician, being a composer is about play, right? There's a reason I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying there's a reason it's called playing an instrument, because there should be an element of play to this, even when you're composing, even when you're problem solving. So I believe that being a gamer has cultivated within me an innate sense of problem solving coupled with a spirit of exploration. You get a new sound. There's a sense of play that happens. Tackling challenges, experimenting with ideas, experimenting with that new plugin, and just playing with it because you feel comfortable adapting to the new technology, even though it's based on a brand new user interface that you're comfortable with, going kind of back up our list here. And there are some games which are nothing but exploration, like Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's just open world exploration, and that's the game. Figuring out the system. What's the problem? What's the puzzle? How do I solve that puzzle? What tool do I need to pick up this thing to insert into this box so that I can unlock this so I can move forward? Gaming absolutely reinforces this concept. And I believe that is directly applicable to being in any real creative industry, but especially in music production, where we're interfacing with computer technology daily. And so the sense of play, the sense of wonder, the sense of not necessarily needing to have all of the directions and all spelled out for you. And I've played some challenging games before where I've had to, get a walkthrough and if I'm leveling my character in World of Warcraft or whatever, and, there are all these talents and I'm like, oh, I'm totally lost. I'll look up a guide. But at the end of the day, it's about experimenting, trying new things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Being a gamer has absolutely encouraged that in me. Problem solving and having an innate sense of exploration and not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to try, right? Even though I play most of my games on kind of easy mode, right? I don't like losing, but I'm not afraid to lose. I'm not afraid to try new things. Just yesterday, during one of the feedback sessions for the family members, somebody, one of the members submitted a cue that was like a trailer cue, and that I had never heard this style before. And it's like, I'm not sure if it could find a home, but nobody's doing this. Just trying new things. The sense of play, the sense of experimentation, exploration. That's a gamer thing. That's a gamer thing. And then finally, being a lifetime gamer has helped me really understand and have a deep appreciation for how sound design, how music is integrated into games, but even more importantly than that, understanding where the sound design line kind of is and understanding how music can be layered, how you can go into an inn and have one thing, one music, cue happening. Then you go out of the end and it's the same kind of music, but it's a little bit different. And then you run into an enemy and it's the same music, but it's a little bit different. These are all gears of energy that being a gamer has helped me understand when it comes to talking about and writing production music, because it's all about gears of energy and not necessarily having giant thematic changes. Zelda is a perfect example of this, where you're just kind of out in the world and then suddenly, a boss shows up and it's like the same music, but it's like the fight version of that music. You go back even further. Have you ever played Super Mario World, right? And when you jump on Yoshi, the bongos show up. It's like, it's like that. And that was the first time I remember As a kid playing Super Mario World, of course I say a kid, by that time I think I was getting into college time. I was definitely in high school. But when I realized, oh, when I jump on Yoshi, the bongos show up, which has nothing to do with like my character. Like, let's see how to say this. My character affected the music soundtrack, but what the music soundtrack wasn't directly, it's not like the bongos were in time to how fast I was running, if that makes sense. And it's the first time that I remember realizing how that layer adds. Me jumping on Yoshi, and now suddenly I'm like, I'm running faster, and then I'm eating apples or whatever that fruit was, berries. It's perfectly synced. It's perfectly in time. And no matter when I jumped on Yoshi, it was always perfectly in sync. Yep. My understanding of that was directly related to my gaming. And that has absolutely carried forth into my career as a production music composer, where I live in this idea of layered energy and development coming through layering and phrasing and adding density into the layers that we have, and not necessarily zinging off into a new key or zinging off into a new theme or a new melody. All those things that you might be taught in music school, A sections and B sections and complementary keys. A lot of that stuff we don't get to do necessarily in production music, but that happens all the time in games. So being a gamer has given me, firsthand experience at how that is implemented. Observing how this music is integrated, when it plays, how it transitions, how it interacts with other game sounds, including the sound design elements. And what does successful sound design sound like? And how does sound design, so these are going to be like the effects and the whooshes and interface, how does that blend in with the music? And where do I need to be careful where sound design line versus music line is? Because as a production music composer, I'm not necessarily talking about like trailers, but I'm talking about like when I do sports cues, I have to be cognizant of the sound design that's going on during the show. And I have to be careful not to put elements into my scenes, or into my cues rather, which could step on those sound design elements. And being a gamer has helped me gain an appreciation and an awareness of how all of those things fit together. Yeah. So a lifetime of gaming, it's not a waste of time. Random adult who says those kind of things. And if you are feeling bad about how much gaming you're playing, I guess you could show this podcast as proof, right? Cite your sources. Again, like I said at the beginning, there is a balance, as with anything, whether it's cheeseburgers, alcohol, or games. Anything can be kind of turned into a vice when used in excess. So I would say be careful. But next time you go down to play a game, or next time you open up Candy Crush or whatever, and let's say you have the sound off, turn the sound on. I mean, I know I play a ton of mobile games with the sound off, but turn the sound on and pay attention. And ask yourself, what aspects of gaming are you finding show up in your composing life? Again, whether it's the enhancement of your keyboard and mouse skills, whether it's being able to navigate user interfaces and changing systems, or adapting to new technologies. Or is it gaming helping you with your sense of exploration and problem solving, or helping you understand how music can be seamlessly integrated into other media? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments below. Are you a gamer? If you're a gamer, what game is your jam? What are you playing these days? And if you play World of Warcraft, yeah, why don't you hit me up? My user tag is it Dr. Talk? I think it might be. Well, if you're interested, let me know. I can drop that and drop my World of Warcraft BattleNet tag. I'd love to to roll with you. And that's really what I play most of these days. But I have like a PS4, and I never got onto the PS5. Well, because when I really wanted one, I couldn't buy one, and now like the moment has passed. Anyway, I would love to hear from you. Please let me know in the comments below. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to be checking out a pulsing tension cue written by longtime community member Jerome Detotto. But first, here's Mrs. 52 Q's Shannon Croft to tell us all about how you can join the community.
Hey y'all, I'm Shannon Croft, and I want to tell you that the 52 Q's podcast is made possible by viewers and listeners just like you, composers and producers who are looking for a better way to connect and collaborate. You see, 52 Q's isn't just another website selling static, pre-recorded videos to a mass audience. It's a fun, vibrant, and positive community that comes together online for sharing cues, getting feedback, and discussing what's up in the production music industry. You'll find both personalized feedback and live interaction, which are the best and fastest ways to grow your skills and earn more placements. The best part is that the 52 Q's community is absolutely free. And when you're ready to take your career to the next level, we offer friends and family subscriptions, which unlock weekly live streams, live interactive group feedback sessions, monthly interactive workshops, and more. Head over to 52qs.com and sign up today. And while you're there, check out our personalized feedback videos, private lessons, and of course, merch. I can't wait to see you at 52qs.com.
All right, that was Revealing Secrets by Jerome Detotto. Jerome, thank you so much for sending this along. This was sent during our week 23 feedback thread. We put feedback threads together every single week. So Jerome, thank you so much. He says this is a new tension cue I was able to finish up. Looking forward to the in-studio masterclass starting on Wednesday. So yeah, let us know how that masterclass went. So I really enjoyed this. Some really cool sounds. I like how it's almost, for lack of a better term, this is kind of, Western ethnocentric, but kind of a Middle Eastern vibe, that those going back and forth between those two, that kind of major chord or that minor chord. We do need to watch out. We probably should trim a little bit out of the beginning there so we don't have quite such a big gap here at the start. I usually leave about 200 milliseconds, but yeah, that will help with that. So I'm just going to trim that out and using my mouse, right? That was that was one motion. My left hand, sorry, just going back to today's topic. So my left hand just holding command, and I have a mouse button that enables me, and I've mapped, cut and slide everything down. And so, yeah, so that was done with my mouse. My hands stayed in position. Anyway, so I really liked this. It did seem to get a little loud. We were pushing into the sevens here a little bit later. I feel like also the pulsing could have been a little bit more prominent, especially here at the beginning. Might even kind of ease into it. Like maybe hold back that kind of that percussion back until maybe the second phrase. All right, and so we brought the boo, 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 boo. I wasn't sure if that was the melody or not. It sounds kind of melodic. But then we bring the piano, which is going to do a little bit more of the heavier lifting, melodically speaking, here in our third phrase. So that piano note kind of stuck out for me. It doesn't really come back. Yeah, I'm not sure what that piano note was about. I thought we were going to kind of carry it into another supporting the melody, but it's not really kind of manifesting. I like the addition of that kind of stringed sound. I don't know if it's like a sitar-y type of a sound. But I do feel like we need a little bit more of pulsing, kind of happening throughout here. It feels a little mid-heavy, where we're kind of that shape here. And some of it, I know this is because I pulled this off of your SoundCloud, and so that's going to be an MP3, which is going to have that kind of area, not really show up. Anything much above 18K isn't going to be communicated. Yeah, I think you can ditch the piano. It's just, I think it's too kind of sporadic. And watch, it seems like some timing issues right there. Yeah, it felt like the boom moved early. I dig that. And what I would do through here, instead of going back and forth between our chords like we have through here, I would hang on one chord throughout here and let the harmonic motion smooth out so that you can start bringing in some other elements. But I feel like by this point, we've heard bum, bum, bum. We've heard that quite a bit. And so my ear wanted to break from that. Some of these frequencies up here might be a little too aggressive. Like if I were just to kind of freeze that, you could see how kind of spiky those are. And it might be that we just need to bring down some of the mids in that sound just to balance it a little bit. And again, I think the bass pulse could be more pronounced. I like it. I could stand to use a little bit. I don't know if we need some more percussion or a groove or a backbeat, some kind of high rim click or something. Is this kind of... Yeah, this feels a little bit like what we did here. Like this transition worked really well through here. I don't know if I would kind of wholesale use it again leading into our third act. In fact, I would do something like this. It's more like... Yep. I don't think because you reduce the efficacy of the first kind of reverse, which works really well. But when you do it again, yeah, it makes that first one seem a little less unique. So I would just reduce it, and then you'd want to crossfade. I don't think we need quite. So let's just push this in, see if we can't kind of create a nice... No, that wasn't as effective as I wanted it to be. You'd want to time it out, but yeah, that's how I would solve that. In here, I feel like we need a little bit more, maybe a kick drum on the downbeat here. Because there is something a little, again, for lack of a better term, kind of tribal. I think it could benefit from that. Ultimately, I felt like it was like a little long. I don't know if the library you're pitching this to wanted something that long, but I feel like we've kind of said what we needed to say by this point. And we could have dipped out right here, right there, yeah. Or rather, probably could have cut one of these and gotten to this last part a little bit earlier. And we definitely need to end on a button, which is that final held out one chord on that last bar. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Revealing Secrets, I feel like the title's pretty good. It's a little general, and a title which speaks to the exoticism of the scale and the harmonic choices that you're using could work a little bit better, but I think this is fine. I think, yeah, again, it's just it works. It just doesn't really tell a lot about what this cue is necessarily bringing to the table, or how, or necessarily, I was going to say necessarily a specific usage, although Revealing Secrets. Yeah, that title might work. Once again, Jerome, thank you so much for sending this along. This was sent during our week 23 feedback session, or feedback thread. We put these feedback threads together every single week, and always appreciate folks leaving their cues for feedback and leaving cues for other feedback. We put those together every week, and currently we are talking about week 24. We're posting up cues for week 24, and I will be choosing one of these cues for next week's episode. But that is going to do it for me. Once again, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Cues who help keep the lights on here. And by the way, If you enjoyed that feedback and you would want feedback on your own cues outside of the podcast, then head over to 52cues.com/coaching, where you can order up your own feedback video. And while you're there, you can check out my one-on-one Zoom sessions, and you can register for our 2023 summer Mastermind, keeping in mind that the next Mastermind isn't going to be until January. So you can sign up, and there is a discount, an early bird discount that will expire on June 23. So you only have a couple more weeks to take advantage. Is it a couple more weeks? No, about a week to take advantage of early bird pricing. After that point, the price will go up. Seats are limited, and we will cap that out, but we would love to have you over there. Head over to 52cues.com/mastermind for more information. Definitely want to tune in next week, where I'm going to talk about left brain versus right brain thinking, and how the different processes, the different cognitive processes affect our decisions and our own compositional process as production music composers. So you definitely want to tune in next week for that. But once again, thank you so much to the family, friends, and patrons for your support. None of this would be possible. And even if you're not a family, friend, or patron, and you're just wanting to come and receive, that's totally okay too. Know that I see and appreciate all of you. And again, thank you so much for joining me today. That's going to do it. I hope you've had an amazing week 23, and I'm looking forward to hearing everything exciting that happened during week 24, because remember, I know and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52cues.com.